It is the black of night. From a tomb, the foul stench of evil rises. A fiend whose soul knows no rest. For every 100 years he rises to bring a new darkness and terror to the land. A curse but with one name: Dracula.
Happy Halloween, everybody! I hope you're all feeling extra spooky, because I certainly am. It's time to celebrate the season, and what better way to do so than to dive into this classic Super Nintendo title, Super Castlevania IV. The confusingly titled, potentially fourth entry in the venerated fantasy gothic horror series of video games from Konami. I say potentially because even in 1991, when this game came out, the series was already pretty sprawling with half-ports, adaptations, and spin-offs abound. But if you want to talk mainline releases, yes, Super Castlevania IV is the fourth game. Let's look back at the other three to get our footing, though. The very first Castlevania was released in 1986 for the Famicom Disk System in Japan, but you probably remember it most for its port to the original Nintendo in 1987. Look at that bitchin' box art! In it, you played as Simon Belmont, a descendant in a long line of vampire hunters who must destroy Dracula every 100 years. And most people remember two things from this game. One, it was a real vibe. The dark and haunting environments and monsters were a real shock to you if you've only ever been playing Mappy Land. Moving sequentially through the many side-scrolling stages, you encounter all sorts of beasts and horrors that you must vanquish with your whip. Two, it was damn hard. All those monsters really wanted you dead, and pretty much anyone who played this game got wrecked. Ghouls, bats, flea men, and the worst enemy of all, stairs. Christ, those stairs were awful. Drac came back twice on the NES, first for Castlevania II Simon's Quest, which had the same vibe as before, including this terrifying nighttime curse mechanic. It also was the first Castlevania to try its hand at the free exploration mechanic. It wasn't very well done, so they played it safe with the final NES entry, Castlevania III Dracula's Curse, a prequel which went back to the sequential action platforming levels and kept things ball-punchingly difficult. All three games were very successful, and in 1991 a new console was on the horizon. So what direction did they go in with the very first Castlevania entry on the Super Nintendo? Well, they played it very safe. Not only did they go back to the sequentially side-scrolling level-based Castlevania, but they basically sorta kind of remade the first Castlevania. But you know what? No one was mad at that. Give the people what they like, right? Now, let's pick this thing apart and see if it held up. I always like to start with the story, and this is going to be an easy one since it's the exact same story as the first Castlevania. It's 1691 in Transylvania, and you are Simon Belmont, storming Dracula's castle to stuff him back into his coffin for another 100 years. Don't expect any twists, turns, or gray area here. Dracula's bad, and everything that's in your way needs to die, so with those parameters clearly laid out, let's look more into how this game is built. We begin at the gates of Dracula's sprawling compound, where we can gather our druthers and get to know a few core mechanics, the foremost of which is using your main weapon, the whip. Introduced in this entry in the series is the ability to whip in 8 directions, and if you've only ever played this game, it seems insane that that was never a thing in previous entries. Your whip takes out enemies, but you can also use it to swing on these hooks, which is fun if not a little physically dubious. You can also hold the attack button and move the D-pad to dingle-dangle your whip, which looks absolutely stupid, but actually has some fun uses I'll get into later. Well, let's get into one now. See those candelabras? Every Castlevania fan knows you can whip these to gain items. If you're right on top of one, you would have to move beside it, turn around and whip it, or you could dingle-dangle. There you go, bud! I mentioned items being in the candelabras, so let's talk about those for a minute. Mostly you're gonna get one of two things, money or hearts. Money is just points, so who cares, while the hearts allow you to use secondary weapons. These secondary weapons are also generally found in candelabras, and they supplement your whip in a number of ways. First is the dagger, which shoots ahead in a straight line, almost a par-for-course weapon in a game like this. Next you have the axe, which gets tossed in an arc and can be useful taking out enemies that attack from above. Then there's the firebomb, which gets tossed in front of you to make a fire that has something of a damage over time property. The boomerang is next, which slowly goes forward and comes back. Finally, there's a stopwatch that stops time. It is interesting to note that the boomerang sure doesn't look like a boomerang, but rather a cross. And that's because Nintendo of America was still on their kick of removing anything religious in their games, which really makes the front of these coffins feel a bit empty. The firebomb is supposed to be holy water too, which actually makes less sense, but fine. Each toss of a secondary weapon uses a heart, but don't let that hold you back because hearts are everywhere. You can also collect these double and triple shot tablets, which allow you to shoot 2 and 3 secondary weapons respectively. Awesome when you can really send those crosses flying. When you start or continue after dying, your whip sucks, but you can upgrade it twice with these power-ups you find almost instantly every time, so they're not really worth mentioning. There's also an invisibility potion that keeps you safe for a very short amount of time, as well as a screen-clearing rosary. Not sure how that religious item slipped through the cracks, but it can pop up from time to time. And then there's the chicken, which brings back your health. And here's something funny, and some of you probably know where this is going. There are some walls in the castle you can break to reveal items. Usually they are pretty good items like double shots or even the rare 1-up. Usually it's chicken you find, which is actually excellent. Simon's such an undiscriminating gourmand, he will eat chicken from a wall, a fact that has spawned its own meme. Hey man, laugh all you want, but once you taste that first wall chicken, anytime you see a wall like this, you'll be jumping in front of it and giving it the old dingle-dangle with the whip, hoping for a hidden meal. Okay, so we got a little sidetrack. Back to the opening area. You head in the front gate just as the drawbridge is closing, giving a real no turning back now vibe before you're thrust into your first area with monsters. The walls rise around you, and this is where the vibe really hits. It's time for action, baby! Whoa! Whoa! Aha! Let's go! Woo! Oh! Bam! Uh-oh! Shit! Haha! This is a lot of fun! You're given a nice little map that looks pretty awesome at first, but then kinda looks like Marble Madness once you get into the castle. As you move through the levels, you move deeper and deeper into Dracula's realm, through gardens and sewers, until you're at the walls of the castle itself. From there, you're moving your way through the library, the catacombs, the treasury, and of course the series' favorite, the clock tower. Side note, why are we bothering to collect money bags in the treasury? Whatever. A lot of the enemies you see here were brought back from previous games and are staples, like the Medusa heads, bone pillars, axe armors, etc. They're all here. Some enemies, like this fireworm, only appear once, which is crazy because look, I just ran past it without having to deal with it. Each level ends with a boss, and a few have sub-bosses. The final level is a frenetic fight against a series of bosses, including death before your final confrontation with Dracula. Overall, you're looking at a pretty expected trajectory for the game. But there's a beauty in its simplicity, and I was actually surprised at how many levels there were. Not only that, but the variety within the levels. Look, within level 4 alone, you're hanging onto this hook while the room rotates around you, entering this warping Mode 7 tunnel, and then navigating this maze of walls and rising platforms. It can be pretty nerve-wracking making your way through all this and staring down the boss when you only have 1 life left, and death would mean going all the way back to the beginning of the level. Sweet Jesus, look at the timer. Oh, come on. No! But the game is generous with the continues by making them unlimited. There's also a password system in case you have a to hell with this moment and need to step away. I don't know, it's pretty hard to criticize the design of Super Castlevania because it's such a tried and true formula. They did the right thing by not screwing around and giving us a clean, unambiguous mission. Let's hop to gameplay. So, here's where the game might show its age because these days the expectations for retro platformers is through the roof. People expect tight, zippy controls, and well, that's not what you're getting here. Simon moves like you got him out of bed to come take care of Dracula, which looks out of place in moments of urgency like this. I know guys, I'm going! Crouching and moving is even more sluggish, and then there's going upstairs. Dude, are you not seeing what I'm seeing? Stop dicking around! Move! This might be frustrating to you even if you've played more recent Castlevania games, since this is probably one of the most sluggish entries in the series. It also doesn't help that, like many early SNES games, this one is bogged down with slowdown. Again, to modern sensibilities this might be unacceptable, but I feel like back when it came out we kind of expected it. It was almost like bullet time that only kicked in when things got a little too crazy. It doesn't bother me as much as it may bother a modern gamer is what I'm trying to say. Controls incur no complaints from me, however, which is a good thing since there are only 3 usable buttons, which are mappable. 8-way whipping works real well here, although it's a bummer to have to jump in order to whip downwards in any way, unless you use the dingle-dangle that is, but it's so bloody weak it takes 2 dangles to take out a bat. This goddamn mummy is just out of range, so I have no choice. God, this is humiliating. I'm embarrassed the mummy has to see this. Oh man, I just took out the boss with the dingle. No complaints on the functionality of the secondary weapons, although the boomerang is clearly the best one, and you will accidentally pick up other weapons from time to time. At least none of them are completely useless, although I do wish they put more of them in the game. When you die, you lose your secondary weapon, and some levels barely have any secondary weapon drops, so you'll often find yourself taking on bosses with just a whip. Check out this final boss gauntlet. You fight Slogra, Gaibon, and then Death, all in a row, and you will die multiple times. And while the game was extremely generous, allowing you to continue where you left off after getting game over without having to fight everyone all over again, they give you a pittance of a top-up beforehand. A whip upgrades some meat, which is useless because you're already full health, and hearts for your non-existent secondary weapon. Thanks, guys. They give you the boomerang and a few hearts, as well as the whip upgrade before Dracula, which is good, however, and hey, guys, I know I was just getting to it. If you want a real top-up with the works, take a flying leap into the void right here, and you'll land on an invisible platform where you'll get 99 hearts, both whip upgrades, the cross and triple shot. Just make sure you don't bungle the return trip. And can I actually talk about this last Dracula fight for a minute? I think it's fantastic. Such an awesome test of skill that has no cheap exploits or unfair moments. Lots of trial and error to learn patterns, as well as mastering the execution with a bit of strategy thrown in. His first phase has him shooting these almost unavoidable shots while you whip at his head. Strategic boomerang throws can give you a few extra hits every time he appears. Take down enough health and it's chicken time, and by that I mean the point in his life bar where he does this one attack that you can get a piece of chicken from, allowing you to health up. Next he's going to conjure up these fire guys who are menaces, but are avoidable with some finesse. Get both of them on one side of you and drop them at the same time. If you get hit too many times, there's a second chicken time when his health bar is approximately right here. Now, eventually if you get him low enough, the music kicks into moment of truth mode and he starts hitting you with the big hits. These massive lightning columns. Avoiding them should be your 100% priority, and if you know you're in the clear, give Drac a whack. Prioritizing Dracula will get your ass smoked, guaranteed. Then the window cracks open and you've beaten Super Castlevania IV. Well done. Unfortunately, few of the other boss fights are as expertly designed as this one, with many being beatable with just the old pick a spot and start whacking away strategy. Which is a shame because they really went out of their way to make some really cool bosses. But while some aspects of this game can be a little cheap and easy, some aspects can be a little cheap and shitty. They should not have made Spike's one-hit kill. Sweet Lord on high, the catacombs are a brutal level, and after navigating this hellscape, you come across this arrangement of falling spiked platforms. Careful, careful, careful. God damn it! Ah! Why doesn't the stopwatch stop them? Ugh. What the hell was that? I'm sorry, but the side of a spike should not be deadly. On the subject of bullshit deaths, how about the old out-of-sight, out-of-mind way these scrolling up stages work? If you scroll a solid platform out of frame, sorry buddy, that's a pit now. Dead. Which is weird because the scrolling down stages work quite differently. They're often quite easy because you could just banzai all the way down. Just make sure you know where you suddenly can't. Despite all these complaints, I'm gonna say the challenge level is just right. You're gonna have a few cheap deaths, sure, but you won't ever get kicked back to the title screen. It just takes perseverance. And if you want an extra challenge, beat the game and you get to play again on a higher difficulty. Overall, the gameplay is good. A younger gamer might struggle a bit, but I see the audience demographics on my YouTube videos, so we good, boys. It's funny how graphics used to be the be-all and end-all for me when I was a kid, and with that being said, after cracking open Nintendo Power, I could not wait to play this game. Look at all the big, beautiful, spooky monsters. Frankenstein, a scaling stone man, a bat made out of coins. Somehow they even snuck a pair of tits into the game. Bonus. You're gonna like the expansive bestiary in this game, and I won't use the term bright and colorful to describe the sprites this time because they went with a much darker, grimier color palette, which is a good call. Super Ghouls and Ghosts went with colorful spooky, which gives off a different vibe. Here we have slimy, sludgy, grimy, and barren tones to match the vibe. Check out this boss fight with Puexel, particularly how he seems to singe the background wherever he goes. Super cool. The environments in the game are maybe not as great as you remember though, and I chalk it up to this being an early SNES game. Those early games really didn't do the best job hiding the fact that environments were nothing but arrangement of tiles, and this game suffers the same fate. Look at this level. It almost looks like when you would accidentally kick the old Nintendo and all the graphics would get messed up. That may be a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I'm trying to say. but I don't want to ignore all the neat environmental touches like these skulls that turn to look at you, or some of the nicer looking levels like the library with the rattling books and shelves. And while the Mode 7 stuff is a bit gimmicky, I gotta say I do like it. These swinging chandeliers are awesome. And speaking of awesome, although it probably shouldn't factor into the score, look at this box! Does anyone else miss this genre of cover art? Not a hint of irony or tongue-in-cheekness, just pure awesome. You could tell they had to resist the urge to put that skeleton on a skateboard too. Overall, the art designers for Super Castlevania certainly understood the assignment. Spooky, moody, grim and grimy, but no less spectacular. Okay, audio in this game is make or break because I've used the word vibe more than a few times already, and as you know, audio plays a massive role in establishing any kind of overall vibe. So let's assess this. Watch this segment after you defeat Death and head towards your final confrontation with Dracula. Okay, aside from that last part, how on point was that vibe? That has to be one of my top 10 favorite SNES tracks as well. Just that gothic, synthy tangle of notes with the pulsing drone and swelling strings in the background. Perfect for your initial fight with Dracula before things kick into overdrive. On the same wavelength is the song that plays when you're finally entering Dracula's castle. Like I said, that no turning back now vibe coupled with the sparse environment to help you contemplate your fate. And also the waterfall level. Doesn't exactly scream waterfall, but super ominous and vibey. But when the whip starts swinging, you best believe this game knows how to dial up the audio accordingly. Here's the first level. And I want to highlight that refrain for A, being awesome, and B, the developers knowing that it's awesome and using it every time you beat a level and collect the orb. Make sure you strike a pose. The boss gauntlet I mentioned earlier has an awesome frenetic vibe as well that needs to be pointed out. And the biggest banger is, without a doubt, the Clock Tower music, aka Bloody Tears, a carryover from the second Castlevania game. This track is so good that they have absolutely no reservations about bringing it back again and again every single Castlevania game. And to be fair, yeah, it hits every note. Energetic? Check. Dire? Check. Gothic? Check. Spooky? Check. But you know me, I gotta find a stinker in the mix, and in this game it's the third part of Stage 3. Frick. Don't know who thought Castlevania needed more free jazz, but it doesn't. Sounds like Ornette Coleman made this using the Mario Paint cars. Sound effects aren't super abundant, which is unfortunate because they could really have brought out some of the monsters. We do get the annoyed ghoul grunt. Oh, I'm sorry, dude. Let's move it over to value. So, I'm gonna have to say the value of picking up the original cartridge of Super Castlevania IV is pretty low. Not because it sucks, because hello, have you been paying attention? It's great. But it's because you could pick this up in other bundles that put the value through the roof, such as the Super NES Classic Edition. I cannot sing enough praises about the value of this thing. Look at all the other great games you get. Super Castlevania almost gets lost amongst these other heavy hitters. If you could find a cheap, legit one, it's great. Otherwise, pick up the Castlevania Anniversary Collection for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and Steam. This collection comes with the first 3 NES Castlevanias, as well as 2 of the better Game Boy Castlevania games, Castlevania The Adventure and Castlevania II Belmont's Revenge, as well as Castlevania Bloodlines for the Genesis, and the rare spin-off Kid Dracula. I should also mention it was available for the Virtual Console for Wii, Wii U, and Nintendo 3DS, but that's a dead service. But the card alone costs $45 USD, which isn't awful, but is probably a price point best reserved for collectors. But find some way to get this game for sure, it's great. And if this is your first Castlevania game and you're thinking, wow, this is awesome, they should make more. Well, good news for you. The franchise has basically exploded since, and you have some amazing, amazing games to enjoy. Just know that the franchise has since moved away from the level-based structure of the original to a more open-world Metroid-style experience. Ever hear of the term Metroidvania? Well, guess where the Vania part comes from. But do yourself a favor and play Symphony of the Night or literally any of the Castlevania games released for the Game Boy Advance or Nintendo DS. Unfortunately, Konami has kinda let this franchise idle over the last few years, only putting out kitschy nonsense that nobody asked for, to such a degree that other games like Bloodstained Ritual of the Night have moved into its place, giving the people what they want, unabashedly wearing its influence on its sleeve. But the fact remains that Super Castlevania IV is a game to own. With its whip-cracking action and moody vibe, it rightfully earns itself an 8.8 out of 10. A few outdated gameplay and design choices do not mar this fun, freaky experience, so do yourself a favor and crack into this thing. Have fun.